Jesse starters out or not, our defense has to play better if we are to win a playoff game. Absolutely. I think this team is not necessary on the defensive side of the ball. I think the one thing, Jesse, that we would talk about is I think a month ago, even 2 or 3 weeks ago, we would probably say that the offense wasn't really ready. I think we've seen a lot of improvement on the offensive line. Obviously, Caleb Williams kind of helps that a little bit, but I think when you look at the offense in totality, I think right now they're where you would like them to be. I think they are a team that could certainly play and win a playoff game and maybe even challenge for a national championship. Obviously, Georgia's a different animal on the defensive side of the ball that Oklahoma would have to contend with. But still, to your point, Jesse could win a playoff game. I think the defense isn't really where it needs to be. Kind of on the back end, more importantly than anything on the back end. I know that they didn't get a lot of pressure defensively with their front four, front seven tonight, but the secondary has to be able to cover a little bit better. And I'm not, I know there's a lot of people here that will come on here and talk about how bad the Oklahoma defense was tonight, and it's just something that I'm not as concerned with right now. If Oklahoma played at this level with all of their starters in, maybe I would be singing a little bit of a different tune. But right now, with so many people out, I'm not as concerned. I'm not as concerned right there. So key is to get some of those guys back, get them healthy, and get them ready for the stretch run. So I think what you're seeing, Jesse, is you're seeing a lot of these teams, kind of fall. Fall right now. You've got, obviously Alabama kind of came back strong today. I think it was 49-9 victory over Mississippi State. But you got Iowa that was exposed a little bit in their home loss to Purdue, so 24-7. So you've got Oklahoma that probably moves up to 3 right now. They're in a good spot. They just got to continue to get better, much better on the defensive side of the ball, and then continue to kind of fine tune that offense as well. Mr. John K. Williams, you should be a real national contender now. I think they've, Mr. John, as I just mentioned, I think they took away one side of the ball from a kind of a liability perspective. Oklahoma was good, has been really good the last 2 games, over 50 points in the last 2 games, combined 55 and 52 tonight. So I think the Sooner offense is where you would want them to be. I think, as interesting as it is, I mean, it's going to be pivotal for them to keep that momentum and keep getting better next week. I know it's easy when you play Kansas. No one's going to be there. It's an 11 a.m. game on the road. No one really cares about this. Probably cares about this game, but those are the games where you see what you're made of, to see can you go through and beat a team that's not any good at all, and can you do what you need to do. So I think that's going to be pivotal for both sides of the ball, and maybe Oklahoma's defense and specifically the secondary gets a little confidence next week against a team like Kansas. I would expect if you give up more than about 14 to 17 points to Kansas, that's not a good performance. So I think Oklahoma needs to continue to get better. Open field tackling is still an issue, and coverage in the backside is still an issue. I believe Dugan had his career best day in terms of yardage, in terms of touchdown passes. So something that Oklahoma has to continue to work through, but it's no time to panic. I don't think it's anything, as I mentioned, if they were doing this against their Oklahoma starters, then it would be a big area of concern. However, with the injuries and putting kids in positions that maybe they're not necessarily ready for, is a problem. So, but get some of those guys back, and let's see what that looks like a little bit. Jim, no pressure. Yeah, I think that's one thing that I mentioned just a few minutes ago, and I think is something that's going to be of concern. They've got to be able to get pressure on the quarterback again. They've got to get that masks some of the struggles that you have in the back end of the secondary. If you can be in a position to get consistent quarterback and getting consistent quarterback pressure, and if you're not, you got to find a way to produce some of that pressure through exotic blitzes, stunts, games up front, and stuff like that. So do you think Spencer Rattler loses a $50 million deal? So I have to make a little bit of a retraction on that. This was some information that I was provided. I don't think it was correct, based on some things that I've kind of been hearing and some other stuff. I think, it was not anywhere near that much. It wasn't the millions, but it wasn't 50 million. So some of the things that I've heard is, he has been, and maybe it's going to start dwindling a little bit, but he was right there with Bryce Young from Alabama in terms of earning potential there in the millions. I think it was more about his $50 million deal was more about his potential earnings from an NIL perspective, not necessarily the deals that he has worth right now. So, my apologies. I'll come in here and tell you tell you guys if I was wrong. So, I was certainly wrong on that aspect. So, but like I said, he still is right there. One of the most, at least up until this past week, was one of the most, had NIL deals worth the most. So Scott Parker, Texas should schedule Tulsa. I think Texas has played Tulsa in the past, but but I think, um, it's interesting. I came away from that game last weekend, the Red River Shootout, thinking Texas is really, really good. I think Oklahoma just played, extremely well in the second half, which I still think the latter part of that is true. However, when you look at the way Texas played specifically in the fourth quarter again, I think they have concerns with being able to finish. I think, when they had Oklahoma down, obviously a bunch, 21 points in the first half, 18, I believe, at one point in the second half as well. So I think Texas consistently being able to finish, I think is a concern right now, and they're not quite where they need to be. So this team's a 4-loss team. Looking at it right now, they still have Iowa State to play. So right now they're a 3-loss team. Could potentially get to a 4-loss team with Iowa State left to go. I'll have to go look back and look at their schedule, but I know they do have a bye week this coming week. So defense is injured. We had young guys playing. Yeah, I think the one thing, Joel, that I would say is, even though the young guys were playing, there wasn't a lot of young guys that were able to make plays on the ball. Josh Eaton made a play on the ball, and it was just kind of went through his hand. And the Quentin Johnston, I think the receiver from TCU, was just kind of took it away from him. So yeah, I think that's one thing that these young kids need to kind of understand a little bit more, is just them not only being in position but making plays on the football as well.